He locked my wife in the garage for 3 days. I came back from a business trip and instead of a cold beer, heard strange cries coming from the garage. I found her crying, exhausted and bruised. When she whispered, "Our son did it," betrayal turned into revenge, and I made his life a living nightmare. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I pulled into my driveway at 5:15, briefcase in hand, already thinking about the cold beer waiting in my refrigerator. Quarterly reports could drain a man, even after 35 years as a CPA. But the silver sedan parked in my usual spot made me pause. Brent's car. He never came by unannounced. Before I reached the front door, it swung open. Della stood there, smiles stretched across her face like plastic wrap pulled too tight. "Clark! Perfect timing. We have something incredible to share." I stepped inside, setting my briefcase on the entry table. Brent sat on my living room couch, hands clasped between his knees. He glanced up briefly, then away. The coffee table was covered in glossy brochures, spiral-bound documents, and small bottles with labels promising vitality and wellness. "What's this about?" I asked. Della gestured to the materials like a game show host revealing prizes. "A ground floor opportunity in the wellness industry. We're talking about building real wealth, Clark. Multi-level marketing done right." I moved closer, picking up one of the brochures. Before and after photos. Income projection charts showing exponential growth. Testimonials from people I'd never heard of claiming life-changing results. "How much are you asking for?" $45,000. Della said it casually as if discussing lunch plans. "It's an investment in Brent's future. In our future." I looked at my son. He still wasn't meeting my eyes. "Let me see the business plan." We moved to the kitchen table, where the light was better. Della spread out documents while maintaining a constant narration about revolutionary products and unlimited earning potential. I put on my reading glasses and began working through the numbers. The compensation structure revealed itself quickly. 70% of projected income came from recruiting new distributors, not from selling products. Each distributor had to purchase $3,000 in initial inventory. The fine print showed that only 2% of participants ever made a profit. I pulled out my notepad and began calculating. If Brent recruited 6 people, and each of those recruited 6 more, and those recruited 6 more, the math collapsed under its own weight. You'd exhaust the entire population of Florida in 7 recruitment cycles. "This is a pyramid scheme," I said. Della's smile hardened. "That's what everyone says about network marketing at first. The people who succeed are the ones who believe. The people who succeed are the top 3% who got in years ago." I tapped the income disclosure statement buried on page 14. "Look at these numbers, Brent. Do you understand what they're showing you?" My son mumbled something noncommittal. "The business model requires an endless supply of new recruits," I continued. "When that supply runs out, and it always does, the bottom 97% lose their investment. You'd be asking me to fund your position in that 97%. You just don't understand modern business." Della's voice had developed an edge. "I understand numbers. They don't lie." I removed my glasses and looked directly at her. "I can't support this." That's when her mask came off completely. "You've never supported us." She stood abruptly, chair scraping against tile. "You sit on your money while we're trying to build something. You couldn't even help with our wedding. You've never offered anything without strings attached." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "That's not accurate." "Isn't it?" Her voice climbed higher. "Name one time you've actually helped us without making us feel like beggars." I stood and walked to my home office. Returned 30 seconds later with a manila folder. Tax preparation habits die hard. I kept copies of everything. I laid out the documents in chronological order. Bank statements, canceled checks, loan agreements signed and never honored. March 2022. My voice stayed level. $30,000 for your house down payment. You called it a loan. I never asked for repayment. Della opened her mouth, but I continued. July 2022. $18,000 for Della's boutique inventory, also called a loan. The boutique closed in 6 months. I placed another check on the table. December 2023. $15,000 for Brent's vehicle because his credit application was denied. Another document. April 2024. $17,000 split across various investments and emergencies you presented as urgent. I arranged them in a neat row. $80,000 worth of generosity met with silence. I have documentation for all of it. You've never made a single payment. Not one thank you note. The kitchen went quiet. Della stared at the checks like they were forgeries. Brent finally stood, but he still wouldn't look at me. We should go, he said quietly. Della snatched her materials, stuffing them into her bag. Papers spilled out. Neither of them bent to pick them up. You'll regret this. Della's finger stabbed the air between us. We won't forget how you treated us. I won't forget either. Brent moved toward the door. I tried to catch his eye one more time. If you want to discuss this further, we can, but not tonight. And not about this scheme. Come on, Della pulled Brent's arm. We don't need him. I stood in the doorway as they walked to their car. Apparently, you do. Their sedan reversed too quickly, tires chirping as they accelerated down my quiet street. I remained there until their taillights disappeared, then walked back inside. The kitchen table still held the evidence of 5 years I'd been trying to help my son. The MLM brochure lay on top of everything else, promising financial freedom in bold letters. I sat down slowly, spreading my hands flat against the cool surface. My breathing was controlled, deliberate. Something had shifted in the past hour, not broken. That suggested weakness. This was more like a recalibration, a reassessment of accounts that had been carrying too much bad debt. I thought about the way Brent never once defended me against Della's accusations, the way he'd stood there, passive, letting her rewrite our entire family history. The son who used to help me during tax season, who knew the value of numbers and honesty, had disappeared somewhere along the way. The overhead light hummed. Outside, the evening was fading into that peculiar Florida dusk where everything looked washed in amber. I kept staring at those documents, adding and subtracting figures I'd never asked to be repaid. When you're an accountant, you learn to recognize patterns, loss columns that keep growing, assets that depreciate instead of gaining value, investments that will never, ever break even. I finally understood what I was looking at. This wasn't family anymore. This was a transaction that had been running in the red for 5 years, and the other party had just demanded an additional $45,000 to stay in deficit. The decision crystallized with the simplicity of a balanced equation. No more subsidizing failure. No more pretending that silence equaled gratitude. No more checking accounts for people who saw me as a bank and nothing more. I gathered the documents and returned them to their folder. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. The house felt different now, quieter maybe, or maybe I was just finally hearing what had been silent all along, the absence of a relationship I'd been funding but never truly having. I left the MLM brochure on the table. Tomorrow I'd throw it away with the rest of the garbage. Martha came home around 8, grocery bags hanging from both arms. She stopped in the kitchen doorway, reading my face before saying anything. What happened? I told her. Every detail, keeping my voice neutral, like I was presenting a client's portfolio. She listened while putting away groceries, her movements gradually slowing until she stood completely still, hand resting on the refrigerator door. How much did they want this time? $45,000, for a pyramid scheme disguised as wellness products. Martha closed the refrigerator and sat down across from me. She picked up the abandoned brochure, studied it briefly, then set it aside. You said no. I showed them exactly why I was saying no. Della didn't appreciate it. I imagine she didn't. Martha reached across the table and took my hand. Clark, you did the right thing. Did I? Maybe there was a gentler way to. Stop. Her grip tightened. This is the 4th time she's come to us with one of these opportunities. The boutique, the online store, that consultant position. Each time we invested. Each time it failed. Each time, no accountability. She stood and walked to the calendar hanging on the wall near the phone. Her finger traced over the past year. Brent's birthday last October. We invited him for dinner. He canceled 2 hours before because Della wasn't feeling well. Thanksgiving. They came for 30 minutes, ate, and left before dessert because Della had a headache. Christmas. They didn't come at all. Said they were starting new traditions. Martha turned to face me. When was the last time he called just to talk? Not to ask for something, not because we called him first. When? I couldn't remember. He's 37 years old, Clark. He's not our little boy anymore. He's a grown man who's made his choices. He's still our son. I know. Her voice softened. That's why this hurts so much. We moved to the living room and talked until nearly 10. Martha reminded me of patterns I'd been trying not to see. The way Brent had changed after marrying Della. How he'd stopped visiting except when he needed money. How he let his wife speak for him in every conversation. She asked me what I'd tell a client in this situation. I'd tell them to cut their losses, I admitted. Then take your own advice. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Maybe it was the relief of finally saying no. Maybe it was Martha's validation, or maybe it was knowing I'd done the right thing, even when it felt hard. The next morning was aggressively normal, coffee brewing while I reviewed my conference schedule. Toast I didn't really want, but ate because Martha made it. Packing my overnight bag with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it 100 times. Text me when you get to the hotel, Martha said, handing me my travel mug. I always do. I know. I worry anyway. I kissed her forehead. 2 days. I'll be back Saturday afternoon. I'll bring those orange blossom cookies you like from the airport. She walked me to the door, waving as I backed out of the driveway. Everything felt settled, resolved. The fight with Brent was disappointing, but we'd move forward. Maybe he'd come around eventually, maybe not. Either way, we'd done what we could. The Orlando conference passed in a blur of tax code updates and networking sessions. I barely tasted the lunch buffets. My mind kept returning to that kitchen table scene, replaying Brent's silence, trying to understand when my son had stopped being someone I recognized. I didn't know that while I was sitting in a conference room discussing depreciation schedules, Martha was going to our garage for canned tomatoes. I didn't know Brent had been waiting, watching, planning. Later, much later, Martha would tell me what happened, her voice shaking as she tried to describe it. How she'd reached for the shelf and heard footsteps behind her. How she'd turned to see Brent coming through the main garage door, the one she'd left unlocked while getting items from storage. "Brent, what are you doing here?" He grabbed her shoulder, pushed hard. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the workbench, scraping her arm against rough wood. Before she could process what was happening, he moved to the electronic keypad by the interior door. His hands shook, but his fingers remembered the code. The same code from when he was 17, helping me with weekend projects. He punched it in twice, once to lock the interior door, once to seal the main garage entrance. "Brent, stop! What are you—" He took her phone from her pocket when she reached for it. His voice came out flat, rehearsed, like he'd practiced this speech. "You'll sit here until Dad calls and agrees to the loan. Della needs that money. This ends when he writes the check." Martha lunged for the door, pulling uselessly at the handle. "Your father is in Orlando. He won't be back for 2 days. You can't leave me." "Then you have 2 days to think about how stubborn you both are." She tried everything, reasoning, "You're hurting your own mother." Begging, "Please, Brent. There's no water in here, no bathroom." Threatening, "This is criminal. You'll go to prison." His face twisted with something that might have been guilt, but he shook his head. "Della said you'd try to manipulate me. This is the only way you'll understand we're serious." He backed toward the main door. Martha called after him, voice breaking. "Brent, please. The records your father showed you, $80,000, it's all true. You know it's true." He paused for just a second. "Della says you're exaggerating." "I'm not. Your father has proof. You saw it yourself." "I can't go back to Della without that money. I can't." "So you're choosing her over your own mother?" Brent's voice went quiet. "I'm choosing my wife, like you always taught me to do." Then he was gone, exiting through the main door, leaving her sealed inside. 3 days. No water source, no bathroom, no phone, no way to signal for help. The garage windows were too high and small, reinforced glass that wouldn't break even when she tried with a hammer from Dad's toolbox. August heat in Florida, even at night. Temperatures climbing past 95 during the day. Martha told me she tried to ration her energy, stayed near the door, called for help until her voice gave out, but our neighbors' houses were too far apart to hear. She tried to stay strong, tried to believe someone would come, tried not to think about dehydration and heat exhaustion and how long a person could actually survive. I drove home Saturday afternoon, eager to see her after 2 days of tax seminars. But as I turned onto our street, something felt wrong. Couldn't identify it yet, just a prickle of awareness. Martha's car sat in its usual spot, but it looked wrong somehow. Then I realized it hadn't moved. The newspapers at the end of the driveway hadn't been brought in. 3 days' worth yellowing in the sun. I parked and hurried inside, calling her name. Silence. No TV sounds, no movement, nothing. I walked quickly through the house. Kitchen empty, living room empty, bedroom untouched. That's when I heard it. Weak, raspy, crying. The garage. My hands shook so badly the first code entry failed. The second time, my fingers found the right numbers. The door swung open. Martha was collapsed against the wall, just inside. Face streaked with dried tears and dirt. Lips cracked and bleeding, eyes barely focusing. Bruises covered her arms and knees from falling, from desperate attempts to escape. I dropped to the floor beside her, checking her pulse with trembling fingers. Martha, Martha, can you hear me? Clark! Her voice was barely a whisper. I pulled out my phone, dialing 911, while reaching for the water bottle in my bag. I need an ambulance. My wife, she's been locked in our garage. 3 days. Severe dehydration. Is she conscious? Barely. I helped Martha sip water slowly, stopping her when she tried to gulp it down too fast. Please hurry. Martha's hand gripped mine weakly. Brent did this. Everything stopped. The world narrowed to those 3 words. What did you say? He waited until you left. Wanted you to change your mind about the money. I stared at her cracked lips, her bruised arms, her exhausted eyes. 3 days. My son had left his own mother, locked in a garage for 3 days, in August heat, without water, without mercy. Something cold and final settled over me like a second skin. The ambulance siren grew louder outside. Paramedics were coming through the front door, but I barely heard them. I held Martha's hand and made a decision more certain than any I'd ever made in 35 years of balancing accounts. Brent was going to pay for this. Every single consequence he deserved. The drive home from Orlando should have taken 90 minutes. I made it in 75, pushing the speed limit on I-4, checking my phone at every red light for messages that never came. Martha's silence bothered me more than I wanted to admit. She always responded to my texts. The conference had been a blur. Tax code updates, networking lunches I barely tasted, hotel room where I'd slept poorly. I'd texted her both nights. Conference good. Miss you. Home Saturday. Nothing back. I told myself she was busy, maybe still processing the argument with Brent. But the unease building in my chest said something else. When I turned onto our street just after 1, the Florida sun beat down mercilessly, heat shimmering off the pavement. My house looked normal from a distance, but as I pulled into the driveway, details emerged that didn't fit. Martha's car sat exactly where it had been Thursday morning. I could tell by the pattern of leaves beneath the tires, undisturbed for days. 3 newspapers in plastic sleeves lay scattered at the end of the driveway. She always brought them in. The front windows were closed tight despite August heat. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I parked, grabbed my overnight bag, walked to the front door. Martha, I'm home. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The house felt wrong immediately. No television sounds, no movement, no ambient noise of someone being home. I walked through each room, calling her name. Living room untouched. Bedroom still made with the same bedding from when I'd left. Kitchen showing evidence of my departure breakfast. Dishes in the sink. Her coffee mug on the counter with brown residue dried at the bottom. Her phone charger plugged in near the toaster. No phone. I stood in the kitchen trying to think logically. Visiting a friend? She would have texted. Emergency with a neighbor? She would have called. My pulse accelerated as rational explanations collapsed under the weight of those newspapers, that closed house, that silence. Then I heard it, a weak, rasping sound from the direction of the garage. Not quite crying, not quite calling out. Just sound. I ran to the interior garage door, my hands shaking as I punched the code. First attempt failed, hit 5 instead of 6. Second try succeeded. The door swung inward. Heat hit me like a physical wall. Had to be 105 degrees inside. Martha was collapsed against the wall, just past the doorway, face streaked with dried tears and dirt, lips cracked and bleeding, eyes barely focused. Bruises covered her arms and knees. She wore the same clothes from Thursday morning, now filthy, damp with sweat. The garage reeked of urine and desperation. My knees almost buckled, but training took over. I dropped beside her, checking for pulse at her neck. Weak, but there. Looking for injuries. Bruises, yes. No bleeding. Her eyes tried to focus on me. Martha, my voice came out steady somehow. I'm here. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911. I need an ambulance at 4247 Oleander Drive. My wife has been imprisoned in our garage. Approximately 72 hours without water. She's conscious but severely dehydrated. The dispatcher asked questions. I answered while moving to my car for a water bottle. Returned, knelt beside Martha, helped her take tiny sips. Her hands shook too much to hold it herself. She coughed, water spilling down her chin, but kept drinking. Slowly, I told her. Small sips. She tried to speak. Her voice was ruined, barely a whisper. Brent did this. Everything stopped. What? She coughed, drank more. He came. After you left. Locked me in. Wanted money. The words were fragments, but the story emerged between sips of water and broken breaths. Brent appearing Thursday evening. The shove. The electronic lock. Her phone taken. His words, stay here until Dad agrees. I listened, my face growing colder with each phrase. My son. My son did this to her. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes. 2 paramedics, Santos and Rodriguez according to their name tags, entered with equipment. Santos knelt beside Martha, checking vitals, asking questions. I stepped back, giving them room. Blood pressure cuff, pulse oximeter, pen light in Martha's eyes. IV lines started for fluids. Rodriguez photographed the garage, the door lock, Martha's condition. Standard procedure for suspected elder abuse. Santos looked at me. We're taking her to Tampa General. You can ride with us. In the ambulance, I sat on the bench beside Martha's gurney. Santos monitored the IV drip, checked vitals every few minutes. I held Martha's free hand, the one without the IV, feeling how thin it had become in just 3 days. Martha's eyes closed, her breathing more regular as fluids entered her system. She's stable, Santos said quietly, but this was close. Another day and we'd be having a different conversation. The weight of that statement settled over me. My son nearly killed her. Tampa General's emergency room was organized chaos. Martha was wheeled into an examination bay. Dr. James Wilson, mid-50s, kind eyes, efficient movements, took over. He examined her thoroughly while asking me questions. How long was she imprisoned? Any water access? Temperature in the garage? Previous health conditions? I answered everything. Wilson's diagnosis was clinical, but grave. Severe dehydration, stage 2. Contusions consistent with falls. Possible mild heat stroke. We're admitting her for rehydration and observation. At her age, complications can develop quickly. I sat in the waiting area while they moved Martha to a room upstairs. The full weight finally hit me. My son, the boy I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, helped through college, deliberately imprisoned his own mother, left her to suffer, chose money over family. The rage that formed wasn't hot and explosive. It was cold, methodical, and absolute. A nurse approached with admission paperwork. Mr. Henderson, your wife is settled in room 412. You can see her now. I stood following her through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and recycled air. Martha looked small in the hospital bed, connected to IV lines, heart monitor beeping steadily, but her color was better. I sat beside her, took her hand. Go home, she whispered. Do what you need to do. I kissed her forehead. I'll be back in the morning. Clark, her eyes met mine. He's still our son. I paused at the door. He stopped being our son when he locked you in that garage. The evening sun painted my driveway orange as I pulled in around 6:30. The house looked normal from outside. Neighbors probably had no idea what happened here. Inside, the air was stale from being closed up. I didn't turn on many lights. Just walked directly to the garage and stood in the doorway, looking at the space that had imprisoned my wife. The smell was still there. Sweat, urine, fear. I pulled out my phone and began photographing. The electronic keypad on the interior door. The high windows Martha had tried to reach. The concrete floor where she'd collapsed. Wide shots establishing the space. Close-ups of relevant details. Measurements of the window height. Temperature reading from my phone, still 93 degrees at 7 p.m. I photographed her dried tears on the floor, the marks on the door where she'd pounded, the overturned shelf where she'd tried to climb. This was evidence. I created a folder on my phone labeled Evidence August 2025 and saved everything there. 30 minutes of systematic documentation. Then I drove to Tampa Police Department headquarters. The desk sergeant directed me to the Family Crimes Unit. Detective Karen Morales was working late, a slim woman in her mid-40s, sharp eyes, professional demeanor. She listened to my statement without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet. When I finished, she asked direct questions. Your son had access to your home? He knows the garage door code. You have evidence of this? I showed her my photographs. She studied each one, nodding. This is criminal, Mr. Henderson. Florida takes elder abuse seriously. Based on what you're telling me, we're looking at false imprisonment and elder abuse charges. She followed me back to my house in her unmarked car. Wearing latex gloves, carrying an evidence collection kit, she photographed everything I'd already photographed, but with official police equipment. She dusted the electronic keypad for fingerprints. Multiple sets. Mine, Martha's, Brent's. She tested the lock mechanism, confirmed it could only be opened with the code from either side. She measured, documented, collected. When did you change this code last? She asked. Never. Same since installation 10 years ago. Who knows it? Family members, including Brent. She made notes. Any nearby security cameras? I remembered the Johnsons across the street. Tom Johnson installed a Ring doorbell last year. Morales walked across to their house. Lights were on. Tom answered her knock, listened to her introduction, pulled up his Ring app immediately. The footage showed Thursday evening, 7:14 p.m. Brent's silver sedan pulling up to my house. 7:17 p.m. Brent entering through the front door. 7:35 p.m. Brent exiting, driving away. Perfect timestamps. Tom transferred the footage to Morales' tablet without hesitation. Whatever you need. Martha's a good woman. Back at my house, Morales told me, I'll contact your son tomorrow for an interview. Based on the evidence, your wife's testimony, medical records, the security footage, the crime scene, we have sufficient probable cause for charges. The state attorney's office will decide what to file, but I'd expect false imprisonment minimum, possibly aggravated assault or elder abuse. These are felonies. How long? I'll try to speak with him Sunday, Monday at latest. If he cooperates, he'll be arrested, but can post bail. If he doesn't, we'll get a warrant. After Morales left around 9:30, I sat in my living room in the dark, exhausted but unable to stop thinking. Brent committed a felony. Martha could have died. This was planned. He waited until I left town. Where was Della? Did she know? Was this her idea? My phone sat on the coffee table. 4 missed calls from Brent. 3 unread texts. Friday at 2 p.m. Friday at 6 p.m., Saturday at 10 a.m., Saturday at 1 p.m. The texts, Dad, call me when you can. Dad seriously need to talk. This is important, please call. Brent was calling while Martha was locked in the garage. Was this guilt, or was he checking to see if I'd come home early? At 10:47 p.m., my phone rang. Brent. I watched it ring twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, I answered, Hello. Dad, finally. His voice came rapid and nervous. I've been trying to reach you. Listen, about Mom, I know you're upset, but I need to explain. I didn't mean for things to go that far. I just wanted her to talk to you, to convince you to help us with the loan. It was supposed to be a few hours, I didn't know you'd be gone so long. It was an accident. I said nothing. Is she okay? Is she home? It was 3 days. Silence on his end. 3 days, Brent. You locked your mother in a garage for 3 days. I know, but I didn't know you'd be gone that long. The conference was supposed to be overnight. So you waited until I left town, trapped your mother, and your defense is that I stayed away longer than you expected. That's not... Look, I just wanted her to talk to you, to convince you to help us. By locking her in a garage, no food, no water, no bathroom. His voice rose. I panicked, okay? Della was so upset about the money, and I thought if I could just... You thought you could extort me by torturing my wife. Don't say it like that. Your mother is in the hospital. Severe dehydration. The doctor said another day and she would have died. Silence. Will she be okay? She'll recover. No thanks to you. Dad, I'm sorry. I really am. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door. This was intentional. You planned it. You waited for me to leave. You used the code I gave you years ago when you were my son. I'm still your son. No. You're a criminal who assaulted an elderly woman and left her to die. Don't talk like that. This is your fault too. If you'd just helped us, none of this would have happened. You've always been like this, never willing to help unless it benefits you. I gave you $80,000 over 5 years. That was different. That was before. Before what? Before you decided your wants matter more than your mother's life? You're twisting this. His voice cracked. Della said you'd do this. Said you'd make it about me being ungrateful instead of about you being selfish. I went very still. Della, so she did know. He realized his mistake. No, I mean, she didn't know I'm just saying, you're saying your wife encouraged you to do something to force my hand, and you chose to imprison your mother. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. My voice dropped to ice. You committed a crime, Brent. Multiple felonies under Florida law. You're not seriously going to... I already filed a police report. A detective is investigating. They have evidence. Security camera footage. Medical records. Your mother's testimony. Dad, please! Pure panic now. Don't do this to me. I'm your son. You should have thought about that before you locked your mother in a garage for 3 days. I'm begging you. Don't ruin my life over one mistake. You ruined your own life. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize to Mom. I'll never ask for money again. It's too late for that. Dad, don't call me that. You lost the right. I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I let it ring out. 3 more calls. All ignored. Then a text. Please don't do this to me. I'm your son. Another. Dad, please answer. Another. Della's going to leave me if I get arrested. Another. I can't lose everything. I read each one. Felt nothing. Deleted the thread. The house was silent except for the air conditioning cycling on. I sat in the darkness, my phone finally quiet in my hand. It was nearly midnight. Tomorrow, Detective Morales would interview Brent. The legal machinery was in motion, but legal consequences weren't enough. I needed to dismantle everything Brent and Della had built, everything they'd counted on. I reached for my briefcase, pulled out a legal pad, clicked my pen. At the top of the page, I wrote a single word: consequences. Beneath it, I began making a list. Sunday morning arrived with harsh Florida sunlight through my kitchen window. I'd been awake since 5, coffee going cold in front of me, yellow legal pad covered in precise handwriting. The list from Saturday night had grown. Criminal prosecution, Detective Morales handling that. Civil lawsuit needed attorney. Estate revision needed attorney. Financial investigation needed information. Other consequences still forming in my mind, like an equation waiting to balance. I started making calls around 9. Most attorneys didn't answer Sundays, but I left identical voicemails. Need representation for civil case and estate planning related to elder abuse. By 3 that afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Henderson, Richard Stone, got your message. I can meet tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Monday morning, I sat in Stone's corner office on the 14th floor of a downtown Tampa building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bay. Stone was late 50s. Silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my account without interrupting, taking notes in neat handwriting. When I finished, he leaned back in his leather chair. Mr. Henderson, before we discuss strategy, I need to understand your objectives. What outcome do you want? I want my son to face every legal consequence for what he did. Criminal, civil, financial. And personally, your relationship with him? There is no relationship. Not anymore. Stone made a note. That clarity helps. Some clients want reconciliation even while pursuing action. You don't? He locked my wife in a garage for 3 days. There's nothing to reconcile. Then let's discuss how to maximize legal consequences. He stood, walked to a whiteboard, drew 3 columns. Criminal, civil, estate. First, criminal prosecution is already in motion. Your role is to support the detective. Provide evidence, potentially testify. Second, Civil lawsuit. We can claim intentional infliction of emotional distress, false imprisonment, elder abuse damages. I'd recommend $150,000 based on medical costs and trauma. Third, estate planning. Revise your will immediately to protect assets. I studied the board like a financial statement. This was war, and Stone had just given me the battle plan. Start with the will. I can do that, but I recommend leaving him a nominal amount, $1. Prevents him claiming the omission was oversight. $1. Perfect. Stone's paralegal Jennifer printed the new will within an hour. 7 pages of legal language, but the key provisions were clear. Martha receives everything. If she predeceases me, everything goes to Tampa General Hospital Foundation and the Elder Abuse Prevention Fund. Brent Henderson receives $1. The language was explicit. I intentionally make minimal provision for my son, Brent Henderson, as he has demonstrated through his actions that he cannot be trusted with family resources. I signed on page 7. Jennifer and another paralegal witnessed. Stone notarized with his official seal. The old will, the one leaving Brent 30% of everything I'd built over 40 years, went into a shredder. The mechanical grindings sounded like justice. Late Monday afternoon, still in Stone's office reviewing the civil complaint draft, his phone buzzed. Text from a private investigator. Preliminary report, ready. Stone rotated his monitor so I could see. Bullet points filled the screen. Brent and Della's rental address. Lease expires September 15th. Employment records. Credit report summary. Total debt, $35,000. Assets, virtually none. The investigator had tracked Della's business ventures too. $18,000 to health supplements, $25,000 to essential oils, $17,000 to wellness products. All losses. $60,000 chasing pyramid schemes over 3 years. I read it twice. Expression hardening. The $45,000 they wanted wasn't for opportunity. It was a lifeboat, Stone said. They're sinking. And now they're facing criminal charges, a civil lawsuit, and their lease ends in a month. Stone allowed himself a small smile. Finding new housing with a felony charge will be nearly impossible. They did this to themselves. They did, but you're making sure they can't escape the consequences. I picked Martha up from Tampa General that afternoon. She'd been cleared by Dr. Wilson after 48 hours of IV fluids and monitoring. She looked better, color returned, eyes brighter, but still moved carefully. At home, I'd prepared everything. Water bottles, medications, TV remote. She sat on our bed, looked around like seeing it for the first time. I didn't think I'd see this room again. I sat beside her, took her hand. You're home now. You're safe. That evening around 8, my phone rang. Brent again. I considered ignoring it, then answered. Let him dig himself deeper. His voice was different from Saturday, less angry, more frightened. Dad, please. I heard you hired an attorney. Please tell me that's not true. It's true. Why? The police are already involved. Isn't that enough? No. What more do you want from me? I want you to lose everything you valued more than your mother's life. I didn't value money more than Mom. It wasn't about money. Then what was it about? He struggled. It was about... Della needed... We had bills. So it was about money. That's not fair. Della didn't know what I was going to do, I swear. You told me Saturday that Della predicted my response, that she knew exactly how I'd react. Silence. She knew what you were planning and supported it. No, I meant she knew you'd overreact. Overreact to my wife being imprisoned for 3 days. You're really going to destroy me, your own son? You destroyed yourself when you locked that garage door. I was desperate. We needed money. I gave you $80,000 over 5 years. You needed better decisions, not more money. So I make one mistake and you cut me out forever? It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You chose Della over your mother. You chose money over family. You chose to walk away and leave her to die. She didn't die. Not for lack of your trying. I ended the call. Then I pulled up his contact information, stared at the name. Brent Son, with a photo from 5 years ago, and pressed block contact. Changed the name to just Brent Henderson. No relationship, just a name. Later that evening, Martha asked me to explain everything. I told her about the attorney meeting, the new will, The civil lawsuit being prepared? The financial investigation? She listened quietly, face unreadable. Finally, one question. Is this really what you need to do? I need him to understand that actions have consequences, that he can't hurt people and walk away. She studied my face, seeing the transformation complete. Then do what you need to do. I trust you. Not quite permission, but understanding. For me, that was enough. But Clark, she added softly, don't let this consume you. It won't. Once it's finished, it's finished. Martha fell asleep in her chair around 10. I watched her, then checked my phone. Email from Stone. Civil complaint ready for review. Will file Friday unless you request changes. Detective Morales indicated arrest, likely Wednesday. Wednesday, 2 days away. I set down my phone, allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. The machinery was in motion, and nothing could stop it now. Wednesday morning felt different, sharper somehow, like the air before a storm. Martha was in the kitchen making tea when my phone rang at 9:15. Detective Morales. Mr. Henderson, I wanted to inform you personally. We arrested your son an hour ago. He's being processed now. I set down my coffee cup carefully. What are the charges? False imprisonment, a third-degree felony. Elder abuse under Florida Statute 825-102, also third-degree felony. Bond is set at $25,000. He'll be arraigned this afternoon. Did he say anything? He requested an attorney. Smart move, actually. But Mr. Henderson, the evidence is overwhelming. Security footage, medical records, your wife's testimony. The state attorney is very interested in this case. After we hung up, I sat still for a moment. Martha watched me from across the kitchen. It happened, I said. They arrested him. She nodded slowly, gripping her teacup. And now? Now he has to post $25,000 for bail. Then he waits for trial. Do they have that kind of money? I thought about the PI report. $35,000 in debt, no assets, no savings. No, they don't. Martha was quiet. Then, so he'll sit in jail? Until someone bails him out. Or until arraignment if he can't make bail. She turned back to her tea. I couldn't read her expression. Around 2 that afternoon, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Clark Henderson. You son of a... Della's voice, shrill with rage. You had him arrested. Your own son. I'd been waiting for this call. Your husband committed multiple felonies. The police arrested him based on evidence. Evidence you gave them. You could have just let it go. Let it go. Your husband locked my wife in a garage for 3 days. It was a mistake. He panicked. It was a choice. He made it. Now he's facing the consequences? We don't have $25,000. Her voice cracked. He's going to sit in jail because you're too stubborn to help your own family. You have family elsewhere. Ask them. We've asked everyone. Nobody has that kind of money lying around. I let the silence stretch. Finally, then I guess he'll stay in jail until trial. You're destroying us. We'll lose everything. You already have nothing. The investigator's report was very thorough. $35,000 in debt. No assets. Your lease ends in 3 weeks. And Della, $60,000 on pyramid schemes. 3 different companies. You're not building a business. You're chasing fantasies. She went silent. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calculating. You've been investigating us? I needed to know what I was dealing with. That's illegal. It's perfectly legal in preparation for a civil lawsuit, which I'm filing Friday. A lawsuit? For what? $150,000. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Elder abuse damages. Medical costs. Pain and suffering. Her breathing was rapid now. We don't have that kind of money. I know. The judgment will follow you for decades. Garnish your wages. Destroy your credit further. Make it impossible to rent. Buy a house. Get loans. Every time you try to rebuild, it'll be there. Why are you doing this? She was crying now. We made a mistake. People make mistakes. Mistakes have consequences. Your husband nearly killed my wife. I'm making sure he pays for it. And Della, based on what my son said Saturday night, you knew what he was planning. You encouraged it. So you'll pay too. I didn't know. I never told him to. He said you predicted how I'd react. That means you knew what he was going to do. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. You wanted that 45,000 so badly, you let your husband imprison an elderly woman. I want to talk to Martha. She'll understand. You're not talking to my wife ever again. Please, just drop the charges. We'll leave you alone. We'll never contact you again. You should have thought about that before you decided money was worth more than family. Clark, please. I hung up. Martha stood in the doorway. That was Della. Yes, she's desperate. She should be. Martha moved to the couch, sat down carefully. What happens now? Now they try to raise bail money. They'll fail. Brent sits in jail until arraignment, probably gets released on his own recognizance given his clean record. Then they wait for trial while I file the civil suit. Their lease ends. They can't find new housing with a felony charge pending. They spiral. And you'll watch. Yes. She looked at me for a long moment. I don't recognize you sometimes. This version of you. This version of me is protecting you. I know. But Clark, where does it end? It ends when every legal consequence has been applied. Criminal conviction, civil judgment, permanent exclusion from our estate. When he's lost everything he chose over you. And then we move on. He's not our son anymore. He's just someone who once was. Martha closed her eyes. I keep thinking about when he was little, when he'd fall and come running to me, when he needed us. He still needed us 2 weeks ago. He just needed our money, more than our presence. That's harsh. That's accurate. My phone buzzed. Text from Richard Stone. Civil complaint filed with clerk's office. Your son will be served within 48 hours. Criminal arraignment scheduled Friday, 10 p.m. if you want to attend. I showed Martha the message. She read it, handed back my phone. Are you going to the arraignment? Yes. I want to see his face when he hears the charges read. Will that make you feel better? It'll make me feel like justice is being served. She studied me again with that expression I couldn't quite read. Finally she stood, moved toward the bedroom. At the doorway she paused. I love you, Clark. This version and every version, but promise me something. What? Promise me that when this is over, when he's been punished and paid and lost everything, you'll let it go. That you won't carry this hatred forever. I considered that. I don't hate him, Martha. I just don't love him anymore. There's a difference. Is there? Hate requires caring. I don't care what happens to him after this. He'll be a stranger who once shared my name. She nodded slowly. That might be worse than hate. Maybe it was, but it was honest. That evening my phone rang again. Different unknown number. I answered out of curiosity. Mr. Henderson? A woman's voice, older, nervous. This is Patricia Morrison. I'm Della's mother. Mrs. Morrison, please, I'm begging you. Don't do this to my daughter. She's made mistakes, but she's trying. They're trying to build a life. By imprisoning my wife? Brent did that, not Della. Della encouraged it, supported it, benefited from the plan. She didn't know what he was going to do. Then she married a man she doesn't know. Either way, not my problem. Please, they need help, not punishment. They need consequences. That's what they're getting. I'll pay you back. Whatever they owe you, I'll pay it back over time. I don't want the money. I want them to understand what they did. They understand. They're sorry. No, they're sorry they got caught. There's a difference. She was crying now. You're destroying 2 people's lives. They nearly destroyed one. I'd say that's fair. How can you be so cold? Practice, Mrs. Morrison. Years of watching my son choose his wife over his family. Years of giving and giving while they took and took. Cold is what I learned from them. I ended the call. Blocked that number too. Martha appeared in the doorway again. Della's mother? Yes. She tried to make you feel guilty. She failed. Martha sat beside me on the couch. We stayed there in silence as evening deepened into night. The house quiet except for the air conditioning and our breathing. My phone sat on the coffee table, dark and silent. No more calls would come tonight. They'd exhausted their options. Friday's arraignment would be next. Then the civil suit service. Then trial dates, court appearances, the slow, grinding machinery of justice. I'd built my career on balancing accounts, making sure every number had its place, every ledger reconciled. This was just another account, and it was finally, perfectly, balanced. Thursday morning, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Text from Tom Johnson. Clark, someone posted something about you on Facebook. Text from Carol Sanders. Is this true? Call me. Text from Mike Reynolds. What's going on? I opened Facebook, which I checked maybe once a month. At the top of my feed, Della's post, written at 11:23 Wednesday night. Long, emotional, accusatory. She painted Brent as a victim being persecuted by a wealthy, controlling father. She claimed he'd accidentally left Martha in the garage for a few hours, and I was exaggerating to punish their independence. 47 shares, 124 reactions. Comments from Brent's friends. Stay strong. Your dad sounds toxic. Martha read it over my shoulder. Her grip on my desk chair tightened, knuckles white. That's not what happened. She's lying. I know. You need to respond. Tell people the truth. I turned to face her. Anything I write becomes part of the public record. It can be twisted in court. Our evidence speaks in legal proceedings, not on social media. But people will believe her. People who know us won't. People who don't know us don't matter. I forwarded the post to Richard Stone. Subject line, defamation, he called back at 10:30. I've reviewed it. Multiple provably false statements. Want me to sue her? Send a cease and desist first. Make her remove it. Stone's letter went out Thursday afternoon, delivered by courier and email. 3 pages on his firm's letterhead citing Florida defamation law, demanding removal within 24 hours. Friday afternoon, my investigator reported that Brent had called Della's parents in Georgia Thursday night. 37-minute call. They'd refused to send money. 4th time Della had asked them for financial help in 3 years. They'd learned to say no. Saturday morning at 7:14, the Facebook post disappeared. Either Della had received Stone's letter and complied, or she'd realized several comments were questioning her version. Why would he lock her in a garage? 3 days without water sounds serious. The social media counterattack had failed. Saturday afternoon, Tom and Linda Johnson appeared at my door with a casserole. Linda hugged Martha, tears in her eyes. If we'd known you were in trouble? You couldn't have known, Martha said gently. Throughout the weekend, neighbors called or stopped by. The Rodriguezes brought flowers. The Changs dropped off groceries. Mrs. Patterson called to offer help. Everyone who knew the actual facts sided with us. Sunday morning, Martha set down her fork at breakfast. Clark, I need to tell you something. I waited. I don't want to see Brent. Not at the hearing tomorrow. Not if he comes here. Not ever. He's not my son anymore. Her voice was steady. She'd thought this through. I reached across the table, took her hand. You don't have to see him. I'll handle everything legal. What if he tries to contact me? There's a no-contact order as part of his bail conditions. If he violates it, he goes back to jail. She nodded, relieved. That evening, Stone called to prepare me for Monday's hearing. He explained probable cause standards, evidence presentation, likely outcomes. The evidence is overwhelming, he said. Judge will almost certainly bind him over for trial. Will I need to speak? No, you're there as family. Martha's statement is already on record. After we hung up, I laid out clothes for Monday. Dark slacks, white shirt, navy tie. Professional, but not flashy. Martha watched from the doorway. You don't have to go. I do. I want to see his face when he realizes how much trouble he's in. I set my alarm for 6:30. Tomorrow, I'd see Brent in court for the first time since this began. Tomorrow, the machinery I'd set in motion would grind forward another step. I arrived at Hillsborough County Courthouse at 8:30 Monday morning, passed through security, took the elevator to the 4th floor, found courtroom 4C. They were already there. Brent and Della on a wooden bench, heads close together, whispering urgently. Brent wore a navy suit that hung poorly on him, sleeves too long, shoulders too wide, obviously borrowed. He hadn't shaved in days. Brent saw me. Our eyes met for 2 seconds, his widened face paling further. Then he looked away quickly, stared at the floor. Della followed his gaze, saw me, glared. I walked past them without acknowledgement, sat on the opposite side of the hallway, pulled out my phone. In my peripheral vision, I watched Brent shake slightly. Della rubbed his back, whispering what I assumed were reassurances. At 9:02, the bailiff opened the courtroom doors. Judge Patricia Morrison entered. African-American woman in her 50s, efficient demeanor. Everyone stood. Be seated. Case number 2025, CF Loan 2847, State of Florida versus Brent Michael Henderson. Is the state ready? Assistant State Attorney Rachel Torres stood. The state is ready, Your Honor. Is the defense ready? Sarah Chen, Brent's public defender, stood less confidently. Defense is ready, Your Honor. Torres presented with clinical efficiency. She read Martha's sworn statement. I was locked in my garage by my son, Brent Henderson, for approximately 72 hours without access to food, water, bathroom facilities, or means of communication. She presented medical records. Patient presented with severe dehydration, requiring 4 liters of IV fluid. Treating physician noted the patient would likely not have survived another 24 hours. Crime scene photos appeared on a monitor, the garage, the electronic lock, the empty space where Martha had been trapped. Finally, the Ring doorbell footage. Timestamp, 7:14 p.m. Thursday. Brent's car pulls up. He enters at 7:17, exits at 7:35. The whole presentation took 15 minutes. It was devastating. Sarah Chen tried her defense. Your Honor, this was a family dispute that escalated beyond my client's intent. Judge Morrison interrupted. Counselor, your client locked a 61-year-old woman in a garage for 3 days without water. The medical records show she nearly died. Intent is not at issue for probable cause. Chen sat down, defeated. I watched Brent throughout. When Torres read Martha's statement, his jaw clenched. When the medical records were presented, he closed his eyes. When the garage photos appeared, his hands gripped the table, knuckles white, but he never looked back at me. Judge Morrison looked directly at Brent. Mr. Henderson, stand. He stood unsteadily. I find there is more than sufficient probable cause. You are bound over for trial. Trial date is set for September 15th, 2025, at 9 a.m. Bail conditions remain in effect, including the no-contact order. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. The gavel struck. 27 minutes total. I stood immediately, nodded to Torres, walked quickly out. Behind me, Della's voice rose. This is insane. She was fine. I didn't look back. In my car, starting the engine, my phone rang. Richard Stone. They were served. Civil complaint right outside the courthouse. 9:34 a.m. How did they react? Deputy said Della started crying. Brent just stood there, shell-shocked. Good timing. Strategic timing. They've been hit with both cases in 30 minutes. That evening around 6, unknown number, I answered, Clark, it's Della. Please don't hang up. We need to talk, like adults, like family. I said nothing. We want to apologize. We'll apologize to Martha, whatever you need. Just please stop the lawsuits. I can't drop criminal charges. The state prosecutes crimes. We're saying we're sorry. We made a mistake. I've never imprisoned anyone. Her voice cracked. You're going to destroy us. The trial is in 3 weeks. We're being sued. Our lease is ending. We have nothing. You have exactly what you've earned through your choices. How can you be so heartless? I'm holding your husband accountable for trying to kill my wife. He didn't try to kill her. A judge, prosecutor, and doctor all disagree with you. Goodbye, Della. I hung up, blocked the number. Later, Martha asked, How did the hearing go? Probable cause found. Trial set for September 15th. Did he look sorry? I considered my answer carefully. He looked scared. That's not the same thing. She nodded, understanding. That night, for the first time since her rescue, Martha slept soundly. I watched her peaceful face in the dim light, knowing I was doing the right thing. Justice wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was quiet, methodical, and absolutely certain. Thursday morning, August 29th, my phone buzzed with an email from the investigator. Subject line, Urgent Housing Development. I opened it at my kitchen table. Brent and Della's landlord had delivered a lease non-renewal notice Wednesday evening. Lease expires September 15th. The landlord told Detective Morales he wouldn't rent to tenants with pending felony charges. They had 17 days to find new housing. I forwarded the email to Stone. Another pressure point activating. Over the next few days, updates arrived steadily. Friday, application denied at Riverside Apartments after background check. Saturday, West Shore Complex rejected same day. Sunday, Bayshore Rentals explicitly cited pending elder abuse charges as reason for denial. 6 properties, 6 rejections. Friday evening's report included something else. A neighbor had heard arguments. Thursday night, around 10, Della's voice through the walls. This is your fault. You couldn't convince your own father. You're weak. You've ruined everything. The alliance that imprisoned Martha was destroying itself. Saturday afternoon, September 1st, my phone rang. Unknown Tampa number. I answered out of curiosity. Dad, it's Brent. Please don't hang up. His voice was wrecked, hoarse from stress or crying or both. I know I don't deserve to ask anything. I know what I did was wrong. I understand that now. We're losing our apartment. No one will rent to us. I'm going to prison. My life is over. Please, I'm begging you. Help me. I let him finish. When the pleading finally stopped, I spoke slowly, clearly. Your mistake wasn't asking for money. Your mistake was locking your mother in a garage for 3 days. You nearly killed her. The doctor said she had maybe 24 hours left. You were 24 hours away from murder. I know, but I didn't mean... Intent doesn't matter. You did it. Now you face the consequences. You'll go to your trial. You'll accept whatever judgment you receive. You'll rebuild your life without any help from me. We're done. Don't call again. Dad, please. I'm not your dad anymore. Goodbye, Brent. I hung up, added the number to my block list. Not because I thought he'd call again, but for the finality of it. Tuesday, September 4th. The investigator's comprehensive report arrived. Housing status, none secured. Financial status, bail loan payment missed, collections starting. Employment status, terminated from job August 30th. Credit score, fallen to 510. Civil suit status, 3 legal aid organizations declined to help. Every domino had fallen. That evening, Martha asked how I felt as the trial approached. Satisfied, I said after considering. Not happy. Not vindictive. Just satisfied that justice is working. Do you think he's learned anything? He's learned actions have consequences. Whether he understands what he did wrong, I doubt it. He's sorry he got caught. That's different from being sorry he did it. Martha squeezed my hand. That's enough for me. Friday morning, September 6th. Stone called. His tone was surprised. Brent's attorney just sent me a settlement proposal. They're offering to settle the civil suit. With what money? $5,000 plus public apology, admission of wrongdoing, and waiver of any inheritance claims. I was quiet for a moment. Where would they get $5,000? That's everything they can scrape together. It's a desperation offer. Stone explained, we'd never collect the full $150,000 anyway. The $5,000 was symbolic, but the other terms were valuable. Formal admission, inheritance waiver, apology on record. They wouldn't offer this unless they were completely defeated. Stone said, this is surrender. I needed to think about it. That evening, Martha and I sat at the kitchen table. The settlement proposal printed between us. Formal apology. Admission of wrongdoing. Inheritance waiver. $5,000. What are you going to do? Martha asked. I traced the typed words with my finger. I'm going to accept it. Not because I forgive him, but because this is what victory looks like. He's admitting everything. Giving up everything. He's broken. Martha covered my hand with hers. Then let's end this. Monday, we'd go to court. One final time. Monday morning, September 8th, Martha insisted on coming to the courthouse. I want to be there when it ends, she said. We dressed professionally, drove downtown together. The courthouse felt familiar now. This would be the last time. At 10 a.m., we entered Civil Courtroom 3B. Smaller than the criminal courtroom, more intimate. Judge Thomas Rodriguez presided. Richard Stone was already there. Sarah Chen arrived with Brent and Della. Brent wore that same ill-fitting suit. Della wore gray, her face carefully made up to hide stress. They didn't look at us. Henderson versus Henderson, Judge Rodriguez called. Civil settlement approval. Stone presented the agreement. Chen confirmed her clients understood and accepted. The judge read it himself, then looked at Brent and Della. This is an admission of liability. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, they both said quietly. The settlement requires a formal apology. Mr. Henderson, you may proceed. Brent stood, pulled a folded paper from his pocket. His hands trembled. His voice was flat, mechanical. I, Brent Henderson, apologize to Clark and Martha Henderson for my actions on August 15th, 2025. I imprisoned my mother, Martha Henderson, for approximately 72 hours, causing her severe physical and emotional harm. I take full responsibility for my actions. He sat down quickly. I watched him throughout, looking for genuine remorse. Found none. This wasn't an apology. It was legal compliance. Judge Rodriguez signed the settlement order. This case is closed. The gavel came down. 15 minutes total. Stone shook my hand afterward. That's it. We're done. In the hallway, ASA Rachel Torres approached. Mr. Henderson, your son's attorney negotiated a plea agreement. No contest plea to both charges. 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory counseling, permanent no-contact order, and if he violates, immediate incarceration, up to 10 years. I nodded. Justice is served. Judge Morrison can take the plea now, 11 a.m. We stayed. At 11:03, we were back in Judge Morrison's courtroom. She recognized us, nodded acknowledgement. The plea hearing was procedural, but important. Mr. Henderson, you're pleading no contest. Do you understand you're accepting conviction? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand if you violate probation, you go to prison? Yes, Your Honor. She signed the sentencing order. This court is adjourned. Another gavel. Another ending. We exited into the hallway. For a moment, Clark and Brent were walking toward the elevators, 10 feet apart. Brent glanced over. Our eyes met. 3 seconds. His eyes were exhausted, defeated. He looked like he wanted to speak. His mouth opened slightly. I simply looked at him. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, just acknowledgement. Then I took Martha's hand and walked past him toward the elevator. No words, nothing left to say. Behind us, Della's voice rose. 2 years? After everything? The elevator doors closed. In the car, Martha asked, What are you thinking? I'm thinking that justice isn't always dramatic. He admitted what he did. He has a felony record. He's supervised for 2 years. He can't contact us. He lost everything. That's justice. It works. And we're done? Really done. Both cases closed today. We move forward. That evening I grilled chicken while Martha made salad. We ate on the patio as the sun set, talking about ordinary things. Martha's book club, the Johnsons' dinner invitation, a cruise we might take in October. We didn't mention Brent. That chapter was closed. Later, in my office, I opened my laptop, found the Case August 2025 folder, added the final documents, settlement agreement, plea agreement, sentencing order, 24 days from crime to resolution. I created a subfolder, closed September 2025, moved everything into it, archived it. When I returned to the bedroom, Martha was already asleep, peaceful. I lay beside her, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, complete calm. It was over. Justice was served. We could rest. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.